Baton Rouge and around the LSU program is speaking about what's happening on campus, and it seems to be some of the draft, some of the wake of the USA Today article that was published earlier this week, talking about covering up sexual abuse on LSU's campus, allegedly. And one of the figures in that story is a friend of our show, Executive Deputy Director of Athletics over at LSU, Verge Ausberry. The title of the story is no good, that says LSU official might have broken federal law after Drake Davis admitted that he hit his girlfriend. Andrea Gallo and Brooks Cabina from The Advocate had a chance to sit down and interview Ausberry. That was published at theadvocate.com and in this morning's Advocate article.
So one thing that we learned in this article that we didn't know about in the USA Today article is after Verge, it looks like at least, or what he said in the article, is that after he got that text with Drake saying he hit his girlfriend in the stomach, that he immediately called Drake Davis. And the phone logs support this. There was a 6-minute phone conversation immediately following that text message. And what Verge said is that he called him to talk about what he had just texted him, and that Drake denied actually hitting her and that he didn't, and Verge chose to believe him. And that's something that I think you're going to see in a lot of this. And for what it's worth, I think Drake Davis is probably pretty manipulative. And to be clear, I'm not saying that excuses anything. That does not get anybody off the hook. I think what that does is hopefully if you're talking about, and like people are still going to have to be held accountable, right? I think though, hopefully if you're trying to think, how does anything positive come out of this, right? It's avoid allowing things like this to happen again. And Verge even says it in the article. He's like, in the future, it wouldn't have mattered what he said after that text. I should have gotten contact immediately. And so hopefully that will be the standard going forward. For what it's worth, though, I think that Drake Davis is probably a pretty manipulative individual. I mean, even Rachel Barbo, who this is what she does, he had won her over to his side. And like I said, this is what she does, what she's built her entire career on. So I think that he fooled a lot of people in that building. And again, it doesn't excuse anything. And you're probably still going to be held accountable. And I think people will lose their jobs. But it's just a learning lesson for anybody in those positions of power going forward, that regardless of, you can't give anybody the benefit of the doubt. You have to report it to the proper authorities, and then it has to work itself out through those legal pathways. And then if the cover-up takes place on like the police side or something like that, which I felt like everybody does kind of have a hand in, like we said, if not purposely covering stuff up, maybe being innocently ignorant or willfully ignorant, right?
Yeah, just a breakdown of protocol.
Yeah, and so it's like if you report it like you're supposed to, and then the police or somebody else screwed up, okay, well that's on them. But everybody has to learn that you can't allow yourself to be manipulated in that way. If you get a text like that, you just immediately have to report it, and there's no excuse. There's a lot of people who will say, and they're right, that that should have been the case anyway, and I feel nothing for anybody who got manipulated. I'm not like that because I guess I'm just very gullible, and I always tend to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I can always be easily manipulated.
I can just say from a personal standpoint that all of this stuff is very surprising, that at a public institution like LSU, that there are not procedures and protocols put in place that are hardlined, right?
Well, they're supposed to be in theory, right? I mean, like,
but that's what, in reading this, it becomes foggy on the chain of communication, the chain of protocol, where it was really fumbled. I mean, I know that the breakdown in text message.
That's fair.
I mean, that it's easy to look at Verge and say, hey, man, you got a text that day. Why didn't you shoot that thing up the ladder? But there's more to the development of the chain, where you're like, how did this become almost a culture?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's the most unfortunate part, is that even though I kind of agree with Ross Dellinger, like the Drake Davis stuff is especially abhorrent, and that is unique to LSU, and ultimately I think that's where it is going to cause the most people to lose their job. But it is, a lot of it does feel cultural, and the sad part is I don't think that's a culture that's unique to LSU. Now, maybe LSU gets unique penalties, and that's well and good, and that's fine. And because we talked about maybe that's how you affect change on a broader spectrum. But yeah, I think these are issues that you would find in a lot of places throughout the country, unfortunately. And so hopefully a high-profile story like this can help to kind of just maybe steer that ship in a better direction countrywide.
Yes, this story will continue to develop, and this story will continue to be reported on, because right now, if you're paying attention to the mainstream news nationally, a lot of people are gobbling this up. A lot of people are on this story and following it at LSU. So you would imagine that LSU at some point would have to perform some type of action, some type of reaction to what is being said and what is being written about the university. Even this morning, in the same Advocate issue that was published on this Thursday, that has the story with Verge, the sit down from Gallo and Cabina with Verge, Scott Rabelais, who's a longtime respected writer at the Advocate, his opinion piece this morning is titled "Ed Ogeron's seat isn't that hot yet, but USA Today report has it warming up." So I mean, you see some of just kind of the wake of what this is bringing to the university. I don't think at this point right now, as we sit here and talk to you on November 19th at 7:28 in the morning, I don't feel that anybody's safe. You know, 100%.
Yeah,
I don't feel that anybody now has.
What information comes out in the
Absolutely.
investigation from here? Like, is there any bombshell piece that somebody's going to uncover that suddenly changes everything? Like, that's all in play. And that headline, Jordy, is important to me to highlight. And remember, there's also the Yahoo headline from yesterday, or was it, where it talks about LSU needing to part ways with Coach O immediately. And it's just such does it not call into focus how fast and far you have fallen coming off of that 2019-2020 year? I mean, if we're just talking about it from like a football perspective, like as if going from being a 40-point favorite to a 1.5-point underdog wasn't reminder enough. Coach O is the reigning national coach of the year. Remember, he won all of those awards, and here we are, not even a full calendar year removed from that. And you have national articles calling for his job, and Dennis Dodd's, hot seat article. I think Rabelais pointed out that he had O as like a 3 out of 5. Rabs wrote about it. So it's just a testament to how badly this offseason has gone for this LSU program, and it could get worse before it gets better.
Trey Truitt, inside of the Bayou Ford chat app, is a former LSU employee and who went through the Title IX training provided by LSU. There are protocols in place, tons of effort to make sure Title IX cases are efforted. Trey Truitt, Title IX cases are taken seriously and investigated properly. Yeah, I mean, I believe that. Well, I believe that they have meetings, right? What is more bureaucratic or has more meetings to have meetings than a public institution? I'd imagine that all of that stuff was covered in videos and meetings and Saturday morning get-togethers and all that stuff at LSU. But when it happens, when it goes down, the protocols, where was the breakdown? How did it break down so vigilantly at every level? I mean, it's like, because when you read the story, there's talks, the police, whether or not they're involved or not, there's a perception that they are. And
well, to me, it all feels less conspiratorial and more just people maybe not doing their full due diligence. I will say, as far as the Title IX thing's concerned, it seems like once they started the Title IX process, I think it got it right. And I could be misspeaking here. Yeah. I think the problem that they had is that it wasn't timely. That it went on far too long before the Title IX trigger was finally pulled.
All right, food questions next here on Off the Bench. Get them inside the huddle. You still have an opportunity. #Munchies.
Off the Bench with Kalana and T-Bob.